it wasn't changeable anymore yesterday evening. So I just decided that this topic is nice as well, and we go to that one and swap to the next date that we will have in March, and take the topic that was originally planned for today in March. Hope that's okay. As always, jump in anytime. You are on mute per default. You need to unmute yourself in case you want to jump in. We have an official Q&A at the end, but I would suggest that we do it as always. You just jump in if you have a question. Regarding GDPR, if anybody of you has issues regarding his face, his voice, his questions, his chat entries, his whatever is visible to others not participating this session, because we're gonna publish the video of this session in Learning Hub, please disconnect now. So now the GDPR thing is done. This is actually the reason why you will not have access to the recordings of the January sessions anymore, because they were not GDPR compliant, so we had to take them. Out. Okay. Today's topic: customizing. We're gonna walk through the complete scenario. So for all of you never done a customization, that will probably quite interesting for at least Bart. I know this is daily business, so this will probably not be that impressive or interesting in the first run, but there will be new things coming up throughout the day. So since I had no feedback yet, am I actually audible? Everything good?
Yep, we can hear you good.
All right, so let's get started. So what we're going to do, we're going to go styles versus settings. That's the basics. What's a style? What's a setting? What's the different editors to be used within the customization process? We talk about text styles in general. We're going to talk about the specifics of the manager customization and cloud versus on-prem here, because that's quite special. We're going to talk about dictionaries, if that's from interest. Where do all the texts come from? The recorder texts, the texts coming from the UI. And then we're going to go a bit deeper into the settings, and then that may be new, but quite interesting and very powerful if you know. It's not well documented, honestly speaking, is binding settings into configurations and the cool things that you can do with configurations. Then we have a brief overview about templates, book page versus master copies. I just want to repeat again. And then project templates, what they are used for, and why they make your day better when you have lots of subject matter experts to manage. And then we have our Q&A at the end, as always. Again, jump in anytime, ask your questions, chat or verbally. Since we are only 5 people in the room, this might be a very private session, so I would suggest that we speak rather than type. Yeah, so let's go ahead. Enable now, customizing, styles and settings. First of all, the process. This is all screenshots coming from the Master Author course, and we will basically work in the Master Author course throughout the day, or mainly in the producer. But if there is things to show, I will point to the Master Author course. This process is a best practice process, but basically right. So what would you do? Define the customization owner as the first one, which happens in a perfect world. Okay, why that? How is the saying in English? Many cooks are messing up the broth. No, in Germany you say many cooks are making the meal uneatable. But that's what happens if all the people in the project can have their hands inside the customization. It will be a never-ending story, and you will not have a reliable standardization at all. So what you should actually consider is identifying owners, or at least emphasizing on customers, and that an ownership for anything which is related to design and standardization should be owned by somebody. In smaller projects, that's the one-man show, the project manager. In others, that would be probably the graphics designer in the team or whatever. Defining the customization needs. After that session, you will see that customization is something that you could easily do within a day, and you could easily spend 2 weeks on it. That depends on the complexity. So do yourself a favor, as long as you know the budget that you have from the customer, to bring all the customization tasks on the table within the scoping workshops and at the beginning of the project, and then really define what you will touch and what you won't from the perspective of expectations management. This is anyway important. Then customer CI handover. Usually I'm requesting that even before the first day. So that's part of the, hey, what you give me beforehand's checklist. Company CI guidelines, intranet guidelines, icon collections, color schemes, whatever they have. Usually I try to have something in place already before I come in. That sometimes helps to keep things short. They like it, okay, you are done already before you even started discussing it. Best case scenario for smaller projects. Then resources, templates, settings, and the toolbox, the famous toolbox that I hope all of you are using consequently. The set of tools, templates, and guidelines that the single author needs to do the job. Document everything in the authoring guideline. As you will see, customization can become quite a complex thing, if necessary. And in that case, you will not survive without a proper documentation. And then distribution and production. That's it. Regarding our capabilities, I don't know any other knowledge management or e-learning suite that could be so intensely customized as Enable now, but nevertheless, what we still do is best fit. Because we are a standard product and our customization takes place within the restrictions of a standard product. So this is where you have to be very clear, especially if you have internal communications or marketing involved in those discussions. There are customers that don't care. If the logo matches, everything is nice, and the others say, okay, but this needs to be a bit more blue, and this needs to be a bit more gray, and this logo needs to go 2 pixels farther to the left. And probably we have restrictions here coming from us being a standard solution. So at that point, be very clear from the very beginning. We do our best, but we will probably not be pixel precise regarding the requirements of such people. So take care and stay in budget. I actually like that, so it's fun. So sometimes I intend to spend more time that I actually have, just because I want to make things look good and pretty. But yeah, you lose track quite soon, and if you're in the mood, and but stay in budget. Usually in the crisp packaged projects, you will probably have 6 hours or a day. In that case, you need to take this as a baseline and know how much you can do within that time range. Voila. So what's to be customized? Let's have a look at the editors first and the things that we can do. Well, we start with colors. I personally start with colors. Why? Because that saves time later. The color scheme is usually there. People will hand it over to you. This is our primary color, secondary colors, fill colors, highlight colors, whatever colors. This is usually documented somewhere in the CI guideline of the customer. And this is why it's first. You should start with this because you need the colors all over the place. And then if you have the palette already in place, it will save you time throughout the whole procedure. The trainer style, as known as the skin of the e-learning framework, is basically the most important style. This is the must configure. For the others, it depends on the given budget. Bubbles, text box styles for different didactical purposes. The book style, the unknown alien, what is this about? Text styles, paragraph styles basically, and why they are important. The documentations, the printable outputs, basically that's what we do outside of Enable now in Microsoft Word. The desktop assistant skin, the manager style, which is kind of special, and the dictionaries. So let's hop over to the tool immediately. Here we go. Let me just delete this. This was just something I played around with in my lunch break. So colors first. So let's look at the fun stuff first. Tools, customization, style resources, text styles, color palette. This is the 3 editors that Enable Now provides to create styles. As I mentioned, I personally would recommend to go with the color palette first. I already created 3 colors here in that palette in the morning session. So maybe add another one saying this is the highlight color, which should be orange, like this. So you can create your own palette, you can sort, you can delete, and you can rename. However, after that palette is once created, which is not the case per default, in any case where an author has to pick a color, the first thing he or she will see is the predefined color palette, which already is some kind of standardization, which is very important. Yeah? Don't having parrot-like e-learnings at the end, but stay within the given corporate design framework of the customer. The color palette does not restrict the author fully to the predefined colors. You still have access to the full color room by moving over, and each customer or each author has actually this add to palette button here. This cannot be restricted by permission, unfortunately, so this is something that you have to tackle by training. But you see the benefit. It's not the full color room in the first run. It's just that color list, and you always have some authoring advices here, yeah, because you can add some notes, which is the description that we've seen. No, the description that we've seen here. Yeah, so any of the colors has a description. Makes a lot of sense. Reduces the amount of pages you have to type or write for your authoring guideline. So colors first, and from then onwards, we're talking basically about adaptable resources. And that's the complete set of resources that could be customer specific. And for some of them, we have additional nodes on the top level of the resource tree, the books and the bubble styles. They are special for a reason. I will show you later why and what to be considered to not step into that pitfall regarding write permissions and resources. So first of all, styles. What styles do we know? Customization, style resources. This is the style editor. I hope you've all seen it once at least. And the first thing we would do is we would create a trainer style, which is the general skin of the e-learning framework. We have the trainer style small, medium, and big as templates. There was one question in the morning session, why is the flat style not part of the template sets? That's because the trainer style is actually just a recolored medium skin. Yeah? So the buttons are coming from the medium template, from this one. And the flat style is just already recolored version of it. If you want to take the flat style, which is the most pretty from my perspective that we have right now, as a template, you will not find it in the list. What you would have to do is pick the flat style, right click, duplicate, which is a general feature which is possible anytime and which you will see now you need quite often, because nothing that's coming from the standard, if to be changed, should be used. You should always use customer specific resources. So same for the flat style. You could easily just go in and modify it, but rather you duplicate it. And please do yourself and all consultants that could show up at that customer later on a favor and use kind of a namespace, like customer's name underscore, and then what about this, the resource as such? In that case, it's obvious what's belonging to the customer. It's obvious what is used and what is not. Yeah? So try to stay within a kind of a namespace. Yeah? Use a naming convention for all the resources that are specific to that customer. It's simply easier to handle. So now I copied it. Here we go. It's there. Going back to my style editor. And now I will find the customer style here. At least I should. There we go. Yeah, and now you see this is just a copy of the flat style, which is again based on the medium one. And I do just a simple change, saying I'm changing this to that purplish main color of my imaginary user. You see the difference here. Maybe we use the other grays to fill, just to have something different. Okay, so that's enough already. So that's clear. This is the main colors. Downwards, you have any tiny color of basically everything in the detail lists. We will not go into that much detail here because this is more or less self-explaining. You can play around with it. The only thing worth being mentioned is the ones that have the light bulb turned out, turned off per default, they inherit their color from one of the base colors on in the header. Oh, they are shades of it. Yeah? So there is kind of a logic behind which works sometimes. And if the customer has an exotic idea about corporate design, it's not working. And then you might override the ones that are inherited by simply activating them. And then you might change them. Yeah, but there is kind of a rule which comes from where and why.
Question, sir. This is Bart.
Yes. Hey, Bart.
Where is that rule? Edison actually asked me that because they were really advanced. I'm like, it's hard coded. You can't touch it. But I was winging that answer. Is that true?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
it's not hard coded. You can modify basically everything. We will pass that by when we talk about templates and how to add templates to the template section. Yeah, postpone that for, let's say, 15 minutes, then you will know.
So you're saying you can't actually modify the algorithm by which it calculates the alternate colors?
I would say we need to check. I need to check the template, but I would say yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okie dokie. So now the change. Now the struggle comes, the logo. This is one of the best fits. We have restricted sizes. The viewport of the customer logo must fit into, in that particular skin, into a 120 to 42 pixel sized rectangle. And if the customer says our minimum size of our logo is 240, then you say, sorry, customer, probably no logo for you. Do it like this, no logo. Possible, but no additional changements of sizes in here. This is simply not possible because they are used all over the place. This is not only HTML, this is programmed hovering UIs, yeah? So you will not have any chance here. So let's replace this with a screenshot from a file, or if you already have your toolbox in place from the work area, open it. No, this is just a fake logo that I created, which now fits. One common mistake made here, small difference actually from the perspective of the consultant, but a big difference for the eye is the fact that you should have some space around the logo, even if it's that tiny. Yeah, so if they give it to you in a bigger size, you calculate it down to the appropriate size, but always like keep some space around it left, like 5 pixels on the top and on the left. Otherwise, it just looks squeezed inside that given area and it looks odd. Yeah? So that's always just a recommendation to bring it in a bit more and not make it stuck to the outside, just as the SAP logo is where it is foreseen. Yeah, this is CI compliant to have it stuck to the corner. That's as it should be. But in basically all other logos that have shapes or something, this is not as it's supposed to be. And you need to bring it to the right size in the right format. My favorite editor for that purpose is still the Snagit editor. You could use Photoshop or whatever image editor as well, but the easiest to use for such little easy tasks is Snagit, so I would go for Snagit. Good. I don't think that we have to go into details here. So now let's save the guy, and now we have a customer trainer, this purplish colored one. So what else is here? New, open. There's 3 templates. As mentioned, the flat style is basically already a variation of medium, and this is the one that would hit 90% of all the cases. The small one, that's for the people with the small fingers and the good eyes. I've not used it since ages, and that is still coming from older days where the resolutions on the screens were lower. And the big is actually something which is rather new, and you would probably think, what is that? If you see it, because on the regular monitor it looks bad, it looks wrong. What's that? It's brutal. And on a regular PC you would not actually use the big style. Keep the big style in the back of your minds if you have the requirement that you're supposed to run content on small tablet devices with high-res displays. This is what it was made for. We actually created it for a specific project where we substituted the online help for a train driver's hardware, which was a machine that the train personnel, not drivers, the train personnel in trains used to book your tickets, to give you advice, to give you delays. So it was a handheld which you could actually use for each and everything. And we are the online help for that particular hardware. And that was a Samsung Toughbook, basically, with a 9-inch display, full HD, 1280 in square on a 9-inch tablet. And if you would use any of the other skins, you would be an acrobat, being able to find the right button with your regular sized fingers. So that's the reason for that guy. Deleting it again. So, but you would not use it for any other purpose actually. So what else do we have? We have avatars in here. We have the desktop assistant style, as mentioned earlier. Let's create one. Customer desktop assistant. Purpling in as well. That's our standard style. If main color is changed, you already see a big difference. Save. So now it's there. There's bubbles. Let's use the rounded corners, my current favorite, calling it again customer. And there I always recommend to have several standard, and then one for the positive feedback, one for the negative feedback, where the traffic light colors are usually used for, and probably something to distinguish presentations versus interactions. This is something that is kind of, or became kind of a best practice, to code the advice of doing something versus now the system shows you something into colors, to avoid having to explain this each and every time. So color coding from a didactical perspective is always something that you should take into consideration. So take our orange, let's say here. All right. So we have a bubble, a desktop assistant, and a trainer style. The exotic one here in that list is the manager style. And the manager style is just behaving as the others, but needs to be implemented differently. I'm just creating it now, and how that works we're going to see in a second. There we go. No, maybe without logo even. Okay, and the background is our gray. Now we have a completely tailored manager UI. Save. So that's the style editor. The rest is self-explaining. In any case, have a look to the customizing chapter of the Master Author course that goes through all this again. So now the styles are there, but if I start a preview, my preview still shows the SAP standard, right? So that's a general thing. a style is a style. The style exists. But a setting needs to say that the style shall be used and for what purpose it should be used. So without corresponding settings, styles are basically useless. So now let's have a closer look to the styles as such, to the settings as such. We have settings, and the settings are bold here. All settings nodes within the adaptable resources tree of the resources, they come with this gear icon, and they are bold. And they have siblings, and the siblings underneath, let's go to the playback settings, which is the ones we're gonna deal with the most today. The playback settings, they reflect the tools settings dialog. And within the tools settings dialog, we have playback settings as well, same. And this is the same order as this. So each page in that settings dialog is reflected by one node underneath the playback settings within the playback settings resource. So any change in here will affect that resource. So that's where all those settings are physically stored. The first one is always the one where most people have their first question mark above their heads. What's that? Explanation, link, forward, and then some cryptic EMG, CR, skin, blah. That's actually where you could modify the next button that is used in explanations. And it looks a bit strange, but it's just a simple tag, HTML. It says use an image for that purpose. And the source of the image is skin. And skin says the path of the used skin, of the used trainer. And within that skin resource, use the button with the name next_red.int.gif. And this is named like this since 10 years. It never changed, but it's not red anymore since 5 years. So it's just a historical name of that file. That doesn't mean a thing. Yeah, it's just saying that's the file. Where this file is located, we're going to see in a second when we go down to the file system level. But this is what that is. That's one of the ones that need explanation. Back to general. Playback settings, general settings. What color should our highlights have in simulations? They please should have our highlight color. If I need help, which color should be provided there? No such positive help color yet. So we would probably stay with that green or define one in our palette. This is basically all self-explaining, and if you want to go into details here within the settings, the texts that are provided by the field help per property, they are helpful. And on the other hand, I can point to the customization guide, which can be downloaded from help.sap.com. This document explains all of them as well, but I believe they are basically self-explaining, the most of them, and the ones that are critical, we're gonna discuss now. So general is general things, independent from the output. And then we have one layer called trainer global, and then we have book reader, library, and all the modes of the simulations downwards. So what is this about? Actually, if it would be really meaningful, that would be intended. Everything from here to here would be siblings or child objects of trainer global. Trainer global sets the global default. So we do something. Visual properties is everything related to design. The style we're using is the default one, which comes from the installation. Opening it now, I find my purplish customer trainer. Cool. So I'm changing globally on the level of trainer global the style to customer trainer and press OK. So what happened? This one is now pending, indicates a pending save. So it's obvious that I changed something on file system level here. What did I change? Just for you to know, this is XML files per section. And since I made a modification in trainer global, let's have a look at the trainer global XML. And there you see the change. Yeah? My skin to be used shall not be the standard, but it should be trainer flat 2, which was the technical name of the resource that I just created. So that's how to read. No? Those files, they contain the settings that's supposed to be used by the player framework. And as always, right click, open folder, you come down to the folder level in case you need to. So this is now changed. Now let's just create the same preview as before and see what's going on. Here we go. It's completely changed. No, it's the My Company purplish library now with the other button colors. So playback settings, trainer global. And then you say, okay, this is my global visual properties. Basically, you change the skin. You can change whether there should be start or stop pages used. A very important part is this down here, the zoom settings. A global decision for the zoom or specific settings for each mode. Here you can define and distinguish between desktop browsers and mobile browsers, whether they should zoom to 100% or zoom to fit. Zoom to fit is quite important, and it's not part of the standard layout, so sometimes people miss that it's actually existing and blaming us for not being responsive or multi-browser capable at all regarding fixed content sizes. This solves that. I'm just doing it for desktop. Usually my best practice would be doing it like this, leaving desktop on 100, well, sorry, 100, and allowing pinches for zoom on a mobile. I mean, I can't show you mobile content now, you can try it on your own, but then you would have on whatever display size the full screen, and you could pinch in to see the details on a mobile device, but on desktop it will still stay on 100. For us to see what it does, I switch to zoom to fit temporarily now and open the preview again. And then here we go, making it smaller. Yeah, it fits in. Not that impressive on library level. I have to find a simulation. Where do I have a simulation? I hope I have one. There should be one. Simulation. Demo. Yeah, and there you see, now it's not full screen anymore. It fits into the browser's rectangle. And if the browser's rectangle, that's what a mobile would be, yeah, goes down, it fits in. And if you have zoom to 100, we're going to see that in comparison anyway later. Yeah, then you would have this panning effect where you see still 100%, but only the area where the action takes place. That's basically a question of taste. So this is what that does. Tools, customize settings, playback settings trainer. So let's get back to default here. Zoom to 100. Yeah, but that's for all mobile cases or wherever you have non-standardizable image or display sizes. You should have this in the back of your minds. But there's a lot of other properties. We will not touch them completely. Maybe in the new window, knowing that you could name your windows properly here and give the browser tabs titles, yeah, which is asked quite often, and it's possible. You just do it here on global level. And then you might say, okay, we use that skin plus the settings that I've defined here globally, but for what reason ever, for the book reader, I want to use another skin. And this is the overrides then for the single modes. This is trainer global, everything which is somehow e-learning-ish. And then, but for books, we use another skin. This inherits, because of, the value from trainer global, and then you could overwrite the inherited value here and say, but for the books, we still use whatever style. Yeah? This is how to read this section. Good. Yeah, basically the other properties here, this is all more or less self-explaining. You can switch single functions on and off. You can change the global way the table of content control behaves. You can set the default orientation where the command bar, control bar is attached to the top corner, to the bottom corner. So there is a high degree of flexibility in here. Maybe too much to discuss each and every switch with the customer. This is why I said you should probably come in with a proposal, and if you're lucky, everything is good, and then it stays as it is. Okay, so playback settings. What else is in the settings? Let me just quickly sneak into my slide deck. Yeah, that comes next.
Oh, Mike, sorry,
Yes.
this is Paul. I have a question about the playback settings. If we wanted to have two delivery scenarios, one that's on the desktop and then one that's on, say, for example, a mobile device, are we able to set a trainer for each deployment setting or delivery scenario?
Yes. This will be one of the next things that we touch.
Okay.
Wait, just another 10 minutes, and then we come to that point anyway. And that's one of the most powerful parts, but not known by most of the people because it's not that good documented.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So basically, playback settings and everything. In here, there is macro fallbacks and macro defaults. Here for the book pages and for the regular functions of a simulation. These fallback values, let's go in macro fallbacks. That don't be scared about that list. This is just all the objects that a simulation knows. The explanation, the keystroke interaction, everything that could be part of a simulation. And the same one below, this is all the objects known by the book. And you know that some of the properties in objects, they are per default switched off. The green lamp is off. And if you want to attach a specific value as a default to something that the author is not intended to use on a regular basis, you modify the fallback value. This is how you change the default used by each and every object of that type after your modification, and even all that have been created before, because it's a fallback. So it's the value that is used if you either switch the lamp off or if the lamp is already off. And that's just all properties of all objects. That's possible in general. This is called a playback setting because it's actually related to playback. It acts as a fallback value for anything. And if we compare the playback settings with the authoring settings, which is everything which is related to the author, we find the same list again, but it's not called fallback, but initialization. And that's then the other way around. You could propose default values, again, for each and every property of each and every object, but for the ones that are actually editable by the author. You could say the default is the info icon for an explanation is set to info. And if you don't like our icons, you would go for no icon. And then any explanation that you would create within a simulation after that would come without an icon. And that's a general thing through the complete list. So no worries about that monster here. It's simply all objects of all properties of all objects that exist anywhere in the tool that you could preset with a specific value or a specific configuration. We pass by the recording settings later again, which are quite important. But since Nicole just asked that question, I will just show you one thing. Since we now touched the authoring and the playback settings and the color palette, I will just fast forward to this slide here and show you what a configuration is. This slide actually shows it. It's just all the settings that exist one by one, and you can bind a set of settings nodes into a so-called configuration. Sounds a bit cryptic right now. Let's do it. First of all, in my playback here, I changed this to my customer. So to be able to simulate a configuration, I just turn it back. I'm saying the default, is not my purplish customer trainer that I just created, I stay with trainer flat here. So the playback settings are just my regular playback settings. And now let's pretend we have another scenario. A subsidiary with an own corporate identity. A partner company that I want to provide content for. If I'm a content producer, like a content provider for the open market, I could do my customizations for that. If I have one scenario where things should look like this and the other scenario where things should look different, and I want to avoid touching the content to come to that point where things look different in different scenarios, this is the point in time where I need to know about configurations to save ages of time. And I have to know that those guys here are not standalone. You could have not only one playback setting resource, we could have as many as we want by simply duplicating them. So I duplicate and say this is the playback settings customer. And now we have 2. Cool. What's about 2 playback settings? Makes no sense so far. What you can do from an authoring perspective is saying if you want to see the preview from standard, leave it like this. And then another playback settings node has a heart button up here set as default. Then it becomes bold. And then any preview would look as foreseen in this playback settings. So you can toggle between different ones. That's pure author perspective for now, and just simple, playing back and switching between the playbacks. So to be consistent, let's do one more thing. Copy the authoring settings as well and say, okay, that's the clone, the duplication of the authoring settings for my customer. Yes, so 2 each. And now let's have a closer look to what we call a configuration. There is the configurations node, and it's from most of the consultants, they say, okay, this is always something, this is default, playback settings, this is all just one entry here. I don't know what they thought this would become, but it's nothing right now. It makes no sense to me, so why using configurations? Okay, same approach, right click, duplicate, saying this is my customer configuration, which I call customer underscore C for customization as a technical ID. We keep that in mind. Okay, so now I have 2 configurations, and within a configuration, I can bind all the settings together, pretending that I have, for this scenario called customer, one specific set each. I just did it for 2 now. You could override the text styles specifically to that configuration. You could override the color palette even for that specific scenario. You could use different default documentation styles for that specific scenario. Well, let's maybe do this as well. Let's say the other guys love the hands-on guide more. So from an authoring perspective, this is easy, easy to train as well. If you produce for this scenario or that customer, you go to the configuration and set a default. Then you use it, author perspective. If you produce for standard, you use the default configuration and change it. And all those change their defaults as well based upon the chosen configuration. Yeah, but the cool thing is end user. Always thinking in large enterprise environments, and more or less coming from the perspective that there is an internal service provider for knowledge management content, and the content should be used for all, let's say, subsidiaries or brands or whatever, but they could have their own design requirements. And this could even be controlled by the URL. And this is what I wanted to point to. And I believe this is what solves your issue, Nico. So default is default. That's why it's called like this. And the preview of the library now, since we turned everything back, is SAP standard layout. Okay, but it's that piece of content, which is simply my complete tree. Okay, let's see. This one comes with the playback settings I called customer. Let's double check whether I changed something in here. Authoring settings customer. playback settings customer. There we go. Double click it. Trainer global, visual properties, customer trainer. Yeah. And then we do some other changes. Let's say whatever. For that, we don't want the help button, and we want the trainer bar on the bottom. There we go. So no, I did some changes for this particular node, which is bound to this configuration we called customer_C from a technical perspective. Starting my regular preview is server root complete library from the perspective of SAP. And now comes the magic, ampersand style equals customer C, same library, nothing can be found. Oh, good effect, huh? It's the first one, so it's supposed to be a question mark. And the complete content looks like customer without touching it. And the complete content looks SAP again. You got the story. Yeah, that gives you the possibility to produce content more or less white labeled throughout a complete production and decide later on, just by modifying the access links that you provide to the single target audiences, to change that content completely if you want. In a medium-sized company with a limited service scope, one of the standard 15 days, you will never get in touch with this feature most likely. Yeah, but if you are the trusted advisor for a big company with a lot of brands and a lot of subsidiaries and a lot of target audiences and probably open market, so for larger long-term ones, this is extreme powerful thing. But because if you don't know about that fact that this is possible on that consistent level, you would probably start moving content around, exporting content into DKPs and bringing it back into other work areas and multiplying your content and create crazy amounts of redundancies that you actually don't even need, because you simply can attach another skin to the complete framework by adding a little additional attribute to the calling URL. Good. So I thought that was worth mentioning. So again, useful for authors and end users. What we just showed, because it's obvious that it's cool, it's the end user view. Yeah. So configurations called via this specific URL parameter mentioned down here. Style is config ID. Switches the complete layout of the playback. Yeah, for large enterprises. Oh, it's the same example that I was just showing. And for authors, it's an option for templates maybe, yeah, or it's an option to simulate previews if you work on behalf of a specific part of your company with specific design or layout requirements. Whatever, yeah, you can bind all the settings into configurations and then say, okay, you guys use this configuration because I tailored it for you, and you guys use this without having to move to leave the boundaries of one work area. You stay within one work area, and everybody still gets the right button on the right place and behaving in the right way. Yeah, it goes even down to the fallbacks of the single macros. Yeah? So even single objects could change their behavior based on the configuration that it is in. And then things become surreal after a while. Yeah, so do yourself a favor. At that moment in time, you will not survive without documentation. Yeah, document what you do. Yeah? This is coding already. Yeah? Even if it's not coding, it's a complex scenario that we try to implement. And if you do not document that properly, yeah, and another consultant comes in, that's a nightmare, because you have to reverse engineer basically everything that you did to find out what you actually did and what the intention was. Yeah? So this is a complexity level of configuration that will not be possible without a proper documentation. Okay. Questions? Clear? Ever used? Bart, you did, right?
I have not done that. No, I've
No?
done what you described as far as having a separate work area for all the different settings, just because, yeah, we're only doing the short implementations. So this is cool that we can do that. That is amazing.
Okay.
But we could have a use for this at Navy, at U.S. Navy, because that's the long-term engagement.
Military, same. Yeah, in military
Yeah.
projects, where you have the different parts and they just want to share content. That's an easy one. One press, bang, looks as it should. Perfect.
That is so cool. Yeah, that's nice. But up to now, yeah, because all our engagements are the little short baby ones, we never do that.
Yeah, in the minor ones, yeah, most likely not.
Yeah, this is helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So let's go ahead. Back to styles. So this is the binding. Nicole, your question is answered, so?
Yes, thank you. That's
right.
really good feature.
Goodie. So then the two specifics that usually fall on every consultant's feet at least once is those two subnodes here. They are still in use. This is a historical thing, and it's the book style and the bubble styles. So if we created our customer bubble style up here, where is it? Did I actually create one? Customer bubble style, where are you? I created one, didn't I? Yeah. Let's go back to here. Customer standard bubble. There it is, save it again. Customer standard bubble. So it's up there somewhere. It's too much in my list. However, this is the customer standard bubble as well. So there is one representation of it here, and there is one representation of it up here. Classical one, you asked the project manager, hey, I'm going to do your requested facelift for the design today. Would you give me the right permission for the adaptable resources? Okay. So he or she gives you the right permission for the complete subtree from here downwards, and you think that's everything that you need. You create new styles, you configure new styles, and it just does not work. Yeah, you don't see the change. The change does not come in, for what reason ever. And the reason is simply that this is the same procedure as we have in projects, let's say. In a project, the project object as such is the editable source, and the demo mode is the playbackable output of it. And that's the same approach. In adaptable resources, this is the editable variants of each style. And some of them, they just behave as projects. They have a usable variant of it down here, which is that one. And if this is locked for you, and you change something in editor, everything looks good. But if you don't have the right permission for that bastard, you will not see your change in the player. And that could drive you crazy. So always keep in mind, any new bubble style or any new book style, that's the two where this is still the case, created up here in the adaptable resources, they create another representation of themselves down here, the used one actually, the player used one. And if this is locked, because you don't have the right permission, you can do as many changes up here as you want. The player will not even realize because that resource is locked. Yeah, just a pitfall. And it's the same for the book style. Good. So in any case, it is possible to go down to the file system level to do additional modifications. Could that be? Let's check the customer trainer. First of all, since we are here, the icons. Oh, the icons. A big fight about the icons. From my perspective, they are now really out of date. Yeah, this is 80s. But this is historical, and some customers still love them. The first thing I usually do is I change the icons. Yeah, and that was a tip that the morning group requested. My perfect source. I'm advertising actually a portal now, which I actually should not do. Whatever. Flat icon. Flat free vector icons. Flaticon.com. Perfect source of anything which is vector based and somehow iconographics. Yeah, you could search for, let's say, a process business process icon. It's already 670 hits, yeah? And then you pick the one that you like, add it to a collection, use that one, add it to a collection. And then, and that's the cool feature here, the complete collection can be downloaded based on specific presets, and you can colorize them in one run. Yeah, you can say, I want this complete collection of icons in red, download now, here they go. As SVGs, as PNGs, as EPS, as whatever you want, in all formats, in all sizes. That's a cool thing. But I mean, this is people, they're earning their money with this. Usually, if you quote the author for private usage, it's for free. For commercial usage, you should make the customer pay. Yeah? This is sense. I believe one full collection of those cool icons is $150 or whatever. So, but make the customer pay, just to be fair. But that's perfect. Yeah. So if you are in iconographics and you need you fastly need a collection, yeah, to get everything layouted properly, that's the best place to go. So, and then you would change them. So this is what you can do on the UI, yeah, creating the style as such, and it's a recommendation actually to modify the icons simply because those 3D things, they are 280s from my perspective. And then if everything fails and the customer still wants more, we can open the box of Pandora and go one level further down to the folder level. Yeah, so taking a trainer resource, a skin resource as an example, and going down to folder level, you will see what I mean. There is all the assets that are used by the skin in there, especially the funny red button that is not red anymore here. Yeah, so that's a common one. Happens quite often. They say it's all good, but that button that is used in the explanation bubble for proceeding, I don't like that one. I want this to be changed. Yeah? And then you search and search and search, and you will not find it. It is simply not there. Yeah, this is the either this is the bitmap, the GIF file to replace. Then this one would be used using the same name, yeah? Or adding an additional file to this folder, and then changing the previously mentioned, where was it? Here. No. Oh, general. The previously mentioned path here. So you would then put your new file name here, and then you would have a new button. Okay? Just because we passed by already. So all the others, those, the didactical icons, the finger and the info and such, they would be changed if you change them here. This is only for the brave. I have 2 customers doing that, but they have their own graphics artists taking care of such things. This is always the s.png. It's the sprite.png. Let's open it, and this contains all the buttons. Everything that the player uses is cut out from here. Yeah, and this is the thing that's created by the style editor actually. Yeah, and the JavaScript framework cuts out the right rectangle to render the corresponding button. Yeah, you see the close button, the minimize button, the refresh button. They are all here. Yeah, and if the customer effectively does not like our symbolics, our symbolic language, saying we have already a scheme for forward and backward, yeah, and in our case it's not an arrow. Huh? We want whatever. Huh? An A and a B, you say, okay, I will not do that for you, but you can do it on your own, yeah? If you're brave enough. Get your color scheme done, because any change in the style editor would overwrite that file again, and then give that sprite to your graphics artist and make them pixel art the buttons here and replace them with others. So a handful of customers of mine are doing that. So anything which has a graphical or visual representation within the player framework would be part of the SPNG. Yeah. Other things like the start and the stop page of the built-in pages are here. Yeah. The app icons for the mobile devices are in here. They are still not customizable. If you want to change them, you have to change them here. They come in on our orange in any case. The SV is the vector sprite. This is things that are rendered by the player and are dynamic. So you will most likely find yourself find your way through. Then the other class of files that are important on the file system level of each resource is the text files. Let's use the tree.txt as an example. Tree, where's tree gone? Slide, save, pop-up, task, tree icons. Where's tree gone? Or is tree now library? Okay, let's go library. This is just a text file, and if you read it, you see that it's basically looking like a style sheet. And that's actually what it is. So for instance, globally changing the tree font, that's a proper example. Yeah, and they say, okay, design is cool, but our house font for the intranet is not Arial. In 90% of the cases, they would say, yeah, Arial is fine. But they say, we have our own house font. We want that in the tree of the library as well. You would desperately search for the function for that because you won't find it. This is what you have to do here. Yeah? You would go, Arial is not good for them. So you go copy, find, you replace, wait, edit, replace Arial with whatever, times New Roman, and do replace all, and then it's replaced. We'll not do that now. Yeah, so some things still cannot be done in the editors, and for some things you might go in here to solve your problem. From a readability perspective, if you analyze our UI, you will find the corresponding piece here because they are one-to-one translated into style sheets. And if you see in the browser, it's called headers, and it's the color that I want to change, and I can't do that in the style editor. You just go in here and change it here, knowing that A, this is coding then, so you document that, please, and B, that any change in the style editor regarding that resource would simply overwrite your change. Yeah, so nobody would be allowed to touch the style editor anymore for that particular resource, because one press on the save button will kill your complete modifications. Yeah, you can do crazy things here. It's quite flexible, but take care. Yeah, there we are on the custom level, and we will not guarantee. And this is what you should have written, please. Yeah, email to customer, please confirm. Blah blah blah. You know the stories. That we will not guarantee that any modification on that level will survive an update. Yeah, simply because if they change the file syntax or the idea, or there's new features added or whatever, there is no guarantee. Yeah, it never happened. Yeah? So since those files exist, so this is since we did the player 2 update a couple of releases ago, there was never a change. Yeah, but nevertheless, to be on the safe side, as soon as you leave the user interface, it's actually in the responsibility of you and the customer. It's custom then, and then you need to have some kind of a clearance email sent saying, okay, we're going to do this, but this will not be sustainable in a way as you expect it to be from the other modifications that we provide.
Michael, I just have a question about fonts.
Yeah.
So if the customer has like a special house font,
yes,
understanding is that like it has to be installed on their computer locally in order for them to see it.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to actually like import it into Enable now at all.
Yes, if you want to use that house font in general, the question you have to ask is, can you guarantee that the complete target audience has that thing installed on their machine?
Okay, so then like, I guess the recommendation would be like have the house font installed on all the local computers, but also have a backup font for them to use.
Exactly, and that's quite tricky. Let me show you. That would be the next topic anyway. Yeah. Texts. No, so we are done with the styles now, I believe, and you got the configuration story, which was important, and file tweaks like this are basically possible everywhere, so you know how to get there. So now let's move forward to texts. The text style resource solves many problems. The one that I just mentioned, the text style of the tree of the library, for instance, is the only left that I know that is not using the masters, the master base style from the text styles. Everything else is using this base font here. Yeah, and the tree in the library is actually the only left alien that is still stucking on Arial here, and this is now you know how to modify this, going down to the data level. Okay, text styles. First of all, your question. This is the list of all installed files on my machine. If there would be a house font, which is the Bahnschrift, which is the font of the German railways, yeah, so it's there. Yeah, because I installed it because I created content for them for a POC. So, but if the answer of your customer is, we are creating content for the open market and we want to have everything using our font called Bahnschrift, if it's internal, but I don't want it to fall back to the browser's global font fallback, which is always Times New Roman, which obviously looks quite 80s. If the font is not installed, what could we do? And that's a fallback font then. This is what you were pointing to. And to build it, yeah, this editor is just a little bastard. Yeah, you will not be able to do so. No, so what you have to do is you go to the target font, copy it with Control-C. Then you choose your fallback font, go back in, and then Control-V it in front of it. And now you have a fallback chain. That's just to tweak that editor. Yeah, because if you would do a manual entry here, it would propose the first it finds with that particular character. Yeah, Arial or so. Yeah, so that's the way to do. But you can, in the font family, you just use comma-separated fallback chains as you would expect it in CSS in here. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Good. So let's go Arial black. Let's say that we'd see at least a change. So besides the general font change, you should not really touch the base font. Yeah? The normal font is more important. Normal means this is any unformatted text. So if you want the unformatted text to modify, you would change the normal font. And then comes the tricky part, the headings. And the headings shall never be used for content. Yeah, and it's still questionable why they are here. But you should not say, okay, I'm using heading 1 for headings of level 1 dot introduction, 2 dot blah, blah, blah. And I'm using heading for very prominent text somewhere in my content. If I need something in 32, I use heading 1. No, don't do that. If you want to have a 32 prominent text, just a second.
My phone's been ringing off the hook. I just ignore it.
Sorry, needed to kill my private phone. So where we are, headings. If you would use that and you would create a handbook, and the handbook, the compound document processing procedure would pass by something which is using this paragraph style, it would just propose an intention saying, okay, the author obviously intentionally decided that at that point in the compound document, there should be a heading of level 1 with that text. Yeah, and this will simply kill your dynamic table of contents. So therefore, modification, yes, but always knowing that headings, they also carry function. This is not only a style. Yeah, there's functionality behind it. So what I'm usually doing on step 2, after the design is done and the colors are set, creating meaningful paragraph styles here. Normal, and then say, okay, we inherit normal and call normal normal purple. Because that's our house color that we're just using, and go for the main brand color, and it's normal purple. And then probably normal invert. If you are in a dark background, you would have a white. And then you would create something which is normal, but large, and then you go like this, and you just override that one and go like this, yeah? And then you build your paragraph styles, and down here you find other style types, lists, inline styles, character styles, like bold, glossary links could be modified here. Yeah, unfortunately, the hyperlink as such is still not part of it. Block styles, boxed styles, no, that come in boxes, and then you can just create your text style layout here. And from that moment in time, wait a second, please. Should we just do a 5-minute break, get a fresh coffee? Is that okay? I'm pausing recording.
Sure.
5
Sure.
minutes break. Huh?
Yep, sounds good.
Share is back up. Good. Are you back? Just small
Yep.
ping. Check, check, check. Okay,
Here.
cool. And let's go ahead. All right, so recording is running again. Yes. Okay. So texts. So after that was done, the paragraph styles now are selectable here and shall be used. Why is this? I'm quite keen on that. People attending the bootcamp or having attended the bootcamp already know that I'm quite repeating this like a mantra all the time till the first says yes. Now we got it, really. I'm keen on that because it fell on my feet several times. Yeah? If you start creating your templates, let's say, for whatever reason, we pass by templates in half an hour anyway, and you say, this is my group template, and this is how the title of the group should look like. Yeah? And the next paragraph should be the subtitle. And this should look like this. And then you have one line free, and then you go for the normal font and do something like this. Yeah, and then you have a template like this. The author would know, all right, yeah, this is how a title should look like. So you would replace this with the regular title, would replace this with the subtitle, then you would put a nice table in to format it somehow, and then there comes your text. If this happens and then corporate design changes completely, the primary color of the customer changes from one day to the other, and then you have exactly one thing to do: customization, text styles, font large, other color, maybe even other font, no issue. And after that, in any scenario, that looks different now. Most of the templates that pass by my desk but look the same, but like this. I want this title to be Arial Agency FF 40 underlined in full color, this color, like this. Yeah, now this is HTML. And if you want to change this, have fun if you have 5,000 learning objects done already. If you use the paragraph styles properly, it's one change. If you don't use CSS properly, and that's the same all over the internet, this is what CSS was made for, it's a nightmare. So try to avoid this completely and train the authors accordingly. Hands off the manual formatting. We are still fighting for a permission for the new text editor when it comes up sooner or later to remove the manual formatting and only allow the usage of format styles. I don't know if this will happen. However, from a templating perspective or general sustainable production approach perspective, you always should consider text styles before other styles or manual formatting, because manual formatting always is trouble. It always ends in trouble. So besides that, what else to the text styles? We had actually seen that we can use text styles for several purposes. One was the configuration as well. No? So let's say this one exists twice as well, duplicate. And that's text styles for my scenario called customer. Now we have two text styles. Cool. Opening the second one and say, but for those, the base font is supposed to be not Arial black, but let's use Times. Close. Text style customer. And now, same story again. Configuration, customer configuration, customer text style. And now if I would do the same stunt again with the preview, adding question mark style is customer C. Yeah, then at least most of it, if I would have typed it right. So at least something's supposed to be, no, not even nothing, because this is manual formatted, but you just believe me, that it works in the same way. It would now use the other text font, than the other font style. Here you see it, yeah? This is Times now, which has been Arial before. This only works if you work very disciplined on long term, because then if you add a style to here, you need to add the style to here as well. They all have to have the same CSSs and the same names. This is just something that you need to take care of. As soon as you have multiple text styles, it's basically your responsibility or the customer's PM responsibility later on to keep them consistent. Yeah, because there is no master text style that somehow inherits down to the other. They simply need to be identical. Otherwise, it will not work. But if you stay identical and disciplined, all possibilities. Yeah? Other fonts, other this, other that. Another use case for multiple text styles would be text styles print. This is something that.
Yeah.
Bart?
Yeah, when you mentioned don't touch the headings because it screws up your table of contents in your print. If you do this, you can mess with the headings in your display styles because you're going to have a different set of heading styles in your print text style.
Regarding the messing up of the TOC, I'm not talking about styles as such. I was talking about using them. Yeah, messing up.
Okay.
That's
Gotcha.
design. That's design, no? But
Gotcha.
no, let's say in a group, you have this title, yeah, and you want this title to it must be prominent, so I'm using heading 1. And if a compound would pass this by, it shows
up in the TOC, right?
And that's the function that I meant. And this is the dangerous.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so print is the other one. Same challenge, yeah, consistency. So what you should do is actually create your first set completely, get a sign off for the first set, and then say I'm creating n further sets as copies of the first. Then it's consistent per default, and then you just hand over to the customers. And if you add things to the primary one, you have to add them to the secondary ones as well for this and that reason. So print would be the case. Hey, we want the screen texts very prominent, yeah, because we have a lot of people with bad eyes in our company. 16 for everything, but I'm not saving this, but on print, the handbooks is only for the young, so we're going to use 12 or 11 for the normal font in printed for the same texts. This is something then. This is reflected in the documentation configuration, which would be our next topic anyway. So let's move forward to documentation from here. But the text style story, I believe you have. One last thing before we do so. Text styles, they have a file system representation as well. And it's the same thing, text styles CSS. It's proper CSS, as you see. This is the base, and this is the normal, and then going down, this is just all the designs that we just created. And this is basically where you would have to change your hyperlink style if you want that, because this is still not part of the editor. And if you have some exotic CSS-based text styles that the customer wants you to use, and you cannot create them in our more or less limited CSS editor, which we call text editor, you can just add additional CSS classes here manually. No problem. Yeah, you just add them. You copy them from the master document of the customer, and you add them here. From that moment in time on, they can be used, but, and that's a bit of a pity, they will not appear in the list. So if you do so, you need templates for everything, and then just mark the corresponding part here on source level using the corresponding class. But if this is then templated and you just strictly say, then in that case, if you want to use those text styles that we cannot rebuild, then you simply might say we use templates for everything and it's cool. Yeah? Then that works. I only had that if they have special bullet styles. No? They used icons for bullets, not the disk, not the dash, but some specific icons like an arrow bitmap. This would not be possible in our text editor, but is restrictionless possible if you add it to the CSS. But knowing that the custom CSSs, they will not appear here. They will only be in the style and could be used, but unfortunately only if using the source and not using the editor as such.
Michael, is it the same case where if you add that CSS class manually and save it on the file level, if you open up the text editor and make a change, it overrides what you just did?
No, I don't know what that problem means.
Oh, so like when we were talking about the style editor and you were making changes on the file, like in the file folder, and then you open up the style editor again, it overrides any.
Yes, same thing. Yeah, same thing. Anything on file system level is overwritten by the corresponding UI editor for that particular purpose. So in that case, yes, style editor would override CSS file and dump your manual changes.
Okay.
But I'm always doing, this is not polite, but I'm doing it like this just to be on the safe side. I'm locking the file on file system level, making it write restricted, write protected. That saves it. The editor will complain. There will be an error. If you save, it says cannot save, error 500. But nevertheless, you're on the safe side because it's locked. That's possible. Going down, right click, write protect, read only.
Okay. Thank you.
Okie dokie. So texts. And then since we are at texts now, let's go ahead with documentation configurations. So we now know the connection between a style and a setting, and for the documentation it's basically the same. And there is configuration styles, and there are already several configuration styles per default. It's the documentation style standard, which is just called documentation style. It's the documentation style HTML, which has that configuration for the responsive HTML document, the one with the funny play button. Yeah, I think you know what I mean. And the regular HTML documentations where you can create canvases and background colors and everything. But this happens always on file system level. Yeah? So there is no editor for that purpose. The HTML templates, they are just templates in here. And if you look at them, that's pretty much straightforward. They contain their own CSS, and they have their bodies, and there you might just do any paddings change, canvas size, entry changes, whatever you want, directly in the file on HTML level. And that's the same for the responsive one, which is unlikely more complex. obviously, yeah, but it's the same thing. This even has some JavaScript in there, because that has some kind of functionality, but any changes to those or any modifications to those need to take place on file system level in the corresponding templates. And then there's an RTL. Yeah, so this is reading direction left to right, and this is for all the languages that are read from the right to the left. And within, it's always the same set. It's the standard settings, one set and another set. Yeah? But those are just the same, but configured right to left, and they are left to right. If you know that you have no target audience in Arabic countries, in that case, you will not touch this actually. Yeah? And in case, you would probably even put that as a default. So that's the style. What's the style of a documentation? The style of a documentation is a dot, a DOT or a DOTX file since a while, which is simply a Word template. Double clicking it here opens the template for editing. And that's what most of them do. Yeah? Okay, it's the SAP dot. There is no SAP logo, so I put my customer's logo in here because that's the default anyway, so I'm pretty much done already. Same as for the other resources, as I mentioned, try to consequently use a customer's namespace, because this will not survive an update. So if you would override the SAP standard one, next update, it would look like the SAP standard one again. It would be your changes would be overwritten. So same approach, you need to take a copy, which is a bit more tricky here. You go one level up, go open folder. Yeah, and then within the DOT, the dot folder, you find them, neutral and SAP, neutral and SAP. Yeah, so this list reflects those templates here. And then you pick the one that fits best to the customer. Most of the cases it would be the SAP dot because it's completely blank, just some header and footer. You take a copy to somewhere, wherever, to your desktop, or you open it just from here and save it to desktop, let's say. Yeah? That's the same approach. That's the SAP dot. Yeah? So the dot is open for editing, and then you save it to the desktop. Where's my desktop? This is the only thing I hate in Windows 365. Everything is in OneDrive, and they hide your desktop everywhere. And I mess up my desktop. I like my desktop. Customer. But yes. So now we have that thing as customer dot, and then you would do your modifications in the header or in the footer, wherever you want. So the simplest thinkable one would be inserting a picture, which again is our logo. Doesn't matter. You got it. I just not willing to go down to my complete level again. So whatever is happening here, the feature set is Word. Yeah, there is no restriction. The feature set is Word. Whatever you can do in Word, you can do with Enable Now, because Word is the limit. Especially when we talk about paragraph behaviors, getting paragraphs stick together, having a page break behind an image. This is all questions that they probably will ask. This is all done here based upon the paragraph control features of Word. This is nothing that you could solve from within Producer. This is what you do in Word. If this is something you are interested in more details, this could be part of our wish list for the upcoming events where the topics are not yet defined. You can just drop me a private message saying this would be interesting. I will summarize all of the private messages I receive in the next 2-3 weeks, and then we define the topics for the upcoming non-yet defined expert sessions based on your input. Okay, if this is done, and you need to import the dot. I already have it here from the morning session. Yeah? Importing would be either adding a file from here or just dragging it in. No, that's the easiest, taking it and dropping it in. And that's the dot that I modified in the morning. I believe there is this logo in. Word becomes slower and slower, but I don't need to prove that that logo is in. So now there is another dot. If you want to clean up, then you can clean the defaults. Yeah? They come back. They are boomerangs. They come back after the next update. The icons that are worth being replaced, as mentioned, they are here as well. Yeah? So take care. If you modify the player icons in the trainer skin, as shown earlier, if you want to be consistent, you need to replace those as well, because those are used for print, better quality, larger. So it's always two sets of icons that you need to replace if you want to replace them. So now we have the customer dot file imported, but it's not yet used. Same story. No setting is responsible for that template yet, so it would not be used yet. Where is this happening? And this is the documentation style and the corresponding setting. Don't ask me why it is not part of the adaptable resources where it would actually belong to, but a separate node on the first level is the documentation setting. And there we have the standard document, the process guide. So all the document types that you already know from the standard. That was the one that I created in the morning session. We quickly delete it. So now, yeah, you would choose the style type you want to use for your customer specific documentation output. The standard document is for a reason called standard, and that's the most used one. Right click, duplicate. Call this standard document for our scenario called customer. And then you would say, and you, buddy, you look the same as the other. So from a fragment perspective, what follows what, that's all good. But you please do not use the SAP standard template, but the customer template. The customer dot file, documentation style, customer dot. Yeah, and then we have another configuration that uses another template and potentially the print text style. Yeah, and then everything which would be formatted in the paragraph style normal and would have 16 pixels and would be purple on the screen would be printed into 12 pixels black if printed, because you have those two text styles defined. And the printout would take place on basis or on founding on the customer.dot as a Word template. Yeah. Fragments are easy. Yeah, this mostly self-explaining. Interesting because not used very often, but quite important, is book page and text unit. Yeah, you might print a specific book page in front of something. So you lay out your title image in a book page and print it in front of each documentation. Or even more important, one specific or up to 11 specific text units that could come in front. And whatever you do in the text unit would be printed. Yeah? So you can create questionnaires in front of your documentation, whatever you want. Yeah, it's text. One important case, just as an example, that could save weeks of work. If you have a big project and they, for what reason ever, some do so, they have an imprint and a copyright information in their training documents because they have to for whatever compliance reasons. And this is like copyright 2018 because it's content from last year. So some consultants would say, okay, we're going to put that into the dot. Okay, what happens? The dot is a copy. So the instance of the dot is just a dump copy. And then you end up in 5,000 documents pretending they have a copyright of 2018 and somebody shows up, says, now please change that. Ooh, huh? What you could do is put the imprint and the copyright information simply in a text unit and put it in front and say, this is the box where it should appear. Copyright 2018. Year changes, go in 2019, one batch job, regenerate your complete documentation. Everything has copyright 2019 and you haven't done anything. Yeah, it's always big differences in manual effort if you do it properly. Yeah, so this is what the text unit is for instance. And there is several other functions within here that are accessible better by the original settings dialog. So that gear icon always brings us to the corresponding settings dialog. And this is the only one that is better readable in the standard layout, I believe. Yeah, it's more compact. And then down here we have marker colors and screenshot threshold sizes, scaling factors for the screenshots, the quality settings for the images when printing, etc. Yeah, this is stuff that you can just crawl through on your own. You see that's quite a beast and quite flexible. One thing worth mentioning is the heading level for the single document. Some people complain for and that's okay because that's organically grown or not historically that it's still level 2. Our headings start with level 2, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, which is completely senseless. But this default is there since ages. It's like the button that is called red, but it's not red anymore. Right? That's the same. So what you should do is actually either change that to 1. I personally do not use headings in single documents at all and switch that to none. And then a printed single document would simply come without any headings in between. From my perspective, they are didactically useless anyway. So a lot of things to do here. This is one thing that always is asked for. This is why I mentioned it explicitly. And then single documents are gone. You just play around with the fragments a bit in case you never did. And then the other type of document is the handbook, the compound document. That means all the others, they are intended to generate a documentation out of one object, which is called a project. And a compound document creates a documentation out of a structure of objects, starting from a group containing whatever you want, text units, books, book pages, and projects, and combines this into a handbook with a consistent table of content in front. This is what the compound does. Yeah, but the compound configuration is just the same as for the single documents. You have a documentation style, you can use text styles, you have fragments in here as well. They are just a bit different. Yeah, there's some that are in the single document are missing here. And you can decide which documentation type to use for the single document. Additionally to that, just one more remark because important and easily overseen. We have the book page section here, and this one is quite important. That one says, if a compound generator passes by a book page, now there's a group that contains a book page and a project. Next group, book page connect. So it needs to print book pages. Then you have to take this setting into consideration because there are per default 2 different ways a book page could be printed. Either as an image, which creates just a screenshot of the final status of the book page. So if it's an animated one, the player tries to fast forward to the end state before it takes the screenshot. If the end state is empty page, then you have an empty page, but it's a screenshot. For stills, it's no problem. Or as text, which would then print any text object or image object. So it's piece by piece, object by object, based on the order list in the book page from, since a while, from bottom to top. So invert. And there you decide, in best case on book page template level, which of the book page objects should be taken into consideration by this print. And this is the next thing we're going to do anyway, having a closer look to templates again. But this, from a readability perspective, is better. Yeah, because the screenshot, you always have the header, you always have the footer. It's a print of something that is intended to be consumed as an e-learning. Doesn't make sense in some cases maybe, but here you have the chance to really consider the print output of something like this explicitly. knowing that your maintenance effort would probably be higher. But this is what we have to have a closer look to from the perspective of the book page templates, which will be our next topic anyway. Yeah, and compound is the same. Yeah, there is not only one. The one is meant as a template or as an example. Basically, that could be several. Yeah, and at the handbook level, you most likely will have not only one. You will probably have several. Yeah, the handbook for the CRM project with the CRM logo on top of it, the general handbook from the training department, the handbook with the nice kitten as a, and so on. Yeah, so this is just copying this and then choosing the right template, the right DOT file again, where you then do your modifications from a style perspective.
Michael, I have a question about page orientation. If we wanted to have a manual that was, say, in landscape mode, do we change the Word document?
Yeah.
Okay.
You change, exactly. Yeah, you change the orientation of the template, it's underlying, and then the complete thing is printed like this.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so let's get back to our slides just to make sure that I didn't miss something. Oh no, there's one thing I missed regarding the styles before we proceed to templating. Two things. One is the manager style. I told you that the manager style is a bit the alien on level of the styles. The manager style, I'm just leaving the presentation running and putting the producer in front. The manager style is something that is not used as the others, just like activated and used. The manager style needs to be copied to the implementation of manager. Where is it? I'm looking at this list since 8 in the morning and now sooner. Yeah, here we go. Open. So there we go. The manager style is real files: release, resource, unprotected, and index. That's the 4 pieces of it. And if you look at a manager local installation, you will find the same folders. Where's my Apache gone? There. Web apps, this is where you would install, or where the installed manager will end up in web apps, because it's a web app. My local one is called My Manager, and that's the extracted one. And if you look into the source of the application as such, you find the same folders: release, resource, and the index file. Yeah, it's down here somewhere here. And that's the files or the folders that contain actual UI relevant pieces. And they are generated by the style editor here, and you need to override them. You could even do that while Tomcat is running, because there is no read access to them. It's just HTML and bitmaps. And if you override them and press F5, and then you already see the output, it's completely recolored. The manager style per default is not release proof. Yeah, this needs to be redone after every update per default. Yeah, and this is something that you especially could face if you have larger companies where the administrators are keen on keeping things safe. They would probably not give you right access to this after the implementation was once done. Yeah, so take this in the back of your mind. If you want to do a customization for manager, you need a read access on the file system the Tomcat application is actually running on, which is not, in my case, they give it to me mostly, but I don't know what your experience is. Sometimes if the administrator is located in Bangalore and your project is in Sydney, and then you probably will not even be in the same time zone of that person and you will have no access. So then you just have to manage that somehow. But keep in mind, all the other modifications can be done on your own and alone without any restrictions, manager customization is the only one where you probably need a second person.
Hey, Mike, we are
Yep.
having a discussion right now about partner managed cloud, and we can't find the process by which we get those files up to the SAP manager to affect our SAP hosted partner managed cloud. Is there a process written down, and where can we find it?
For cloud, you mean?
Yeah, for partner managed cloud.
Yeah, that's the next one here. Yeah, so
Okay, sorry.
no worries. Yeah. So that was on-prem, and for cloud, it's the same procedure actually. So you use the same files, but you upload those files to the underscore system work area of the customer into the resource node called UI. So any tenant has this underscore system work area, and there is a special permission for that called, guess what, underscore system work area, that you need to have access to it. That's built in. Yeah, and that's for the technical administrator of the cloud. And this is actually where the clients are hosted in. Yeah, so the producer that you download when you click the producer link in cloud, or the desktop assistant you open when you click the desktop assistant link or open a desktop assistant link in cloud, they are coming from that system work area. That's one purpose of it, hosting the clients. And the other, that's that UI resource that is in there, that's used to host any customizations to the manager application, and you simply put it in considering the root node being that level. Yeah, so you could overwrite not every, but most of the files that are in here by your custom ones, just using this as a base as a starting point. Yeah, so you would consider, in my case, my application is called My Manager. Yeah, and following this tree structure from here, you can just overwrite basically any file in your cloud tenant. But it's per tenant, not per work area. Take care. Did that solve the problem?
I'll tell my guy that.
Okay, and I believe this is not yet documented. This is why you haven't found it. No?
Yes, and actually Jesse Bernal, you know Jesse.
Yeah, sure.
Jesse. He when you ask him questions, he's kind of quick. Anyway, so he said, "Oh yeah, this is documented on the internal info center." Now, do we have access to internal? Because I thought we could only see the external info center.
Yours is the external, and the internal is restricted to SAP.com addresses. Yeah.
That
Unfortunately.
Is why. That is why. Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, I've not seen any documentation regarding this yet. Yeah, I was not.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if this. I believe they just missed it. I passed this by when I prepared this session. That I was looking for. I was just wanted to point to the right chapter, and I couldn't find it. I told Martin already. Yeah, next version of Cloud Manager Handbook will contain it. They simply forgot it.
That's what I thought. I read it and reread it, and I'm like, I am stupid. Why am I not seeing this? So this helps. We'll tell our partner managed guy. Yeah, no, this helps. Thank you.
Yeah, just forgotten. By the way, since we are here in the inner sanctum of manager application, you have that release node here, and within release you will have is it release? Yes. Collaborator, that's the old name, and then one name per one file per language code. 1030 is supposed to be US, American, English, right? And that's basically the overall text file of manager. This is one, where you have your components named, the buttons in the UI actually, and even better, my mouse becomes so lame. Something is going really wrong with my machine. Maybe my little friend OneDrive started syncing again. Pause you. So, and that's context. And there is one file per language as well. This is where the mail texts are in for the awareness mails and stuff. This is the exception. There's a bug right now. So if you want to modify mail texts, this is not possible right now. Will come back. It's just a bug. And here on the level of localization, guys, I'm just seeing that my video becomes strange. Am I still audible?
Yeah, we can hear you, but yeah, sometimes your video hitches. It just stops moving.
I'm just switching that off, but it can't be somehow bandwidth related.
There you go. I see your mouse moving now. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So bandwidth is server and exception. Server is the one. And within server, you find all the real user interface text. So the administration tab and the work area tab. Yeah. So here is where you could actually rename everything. Yeah. So if you want to rebuild your UI for what reason ever, and the customer asks you for, this is where you go. Yeah. And then you just replace the modified files. Yeah. It's a delta principle. Yeah. You don't have to put all in there. You put the ones in there that you changed. What is the US American code? I always forget. Is it 1033 or 30?
That's right, 33. Yeah,
33.
That's the only one we ever look at. I forget which one the Spanish one is.
Yeah,
but
that was Spanish. No, now it's get stuck completely. Oh my God. The perfect moment in time, huh? So probably I quickly clean up a bit. Too many browser windows, maybe. Or IT decided to update my Windows. That's what they sometimes do on Fridays. So now it becomes fluffy again. Okay, so manager customization, this is how it goes. Yeah? It's just replacements of the files, not more. And it differs between the scenarios. On-prem, just replace it on the level of the file system where the machine is actually installed. You know that you probably won't have access to that. So it needs preparation. Same for the UI resource in the system work area. You just upload it, and don't wonder, you upload it via producer. You know, what you do is you open the system work area in producer, you fully sync it, and you upload it there, and you upload your uploaded files from producer to the cloud. Yeah, it's not working directly. Yeah, that's one thing that I will add here. I missed that one. So you shall use producer because that's the more robust way to do so. All right. So we had settings, we had documents, we had basically everything. There is just some links in the slide deck. The slide deck is not that comprehensive at the ones from January, because I think that on in Info Center and in Master Author course, especially, everything regarding document customization is pretty much explained. I will just go through the customization chapter quickly because there were 2-3 things that I wanted to show you additionally to the slides and not showing in the system because that would probably take too long. Oh my God, is this so lame?
You had glitches last time we talked in January.
Say it again.
You had glitches last time in January.
Yeah, but that was even the other machine. I have a new PC in the meantime.
Ah, progress.
And why is this context menu don't go away anymore? What's up? Man, I'm in the middle of something. Stop bothering me.
Reboot.
Go away. No, it's gone. So now stay away. Okay. Customization. That was all the things that we discussed from the perspective of the course, our chameleon with all the examples, etc. So text styles, alternative text fonts is something that I just showed you. It's in here as well, that little trick with the copy. Yeah, It's in here as well. Fallbacks should be web safe. That's clear. This is important. Yeah, I didn't mention that yet. Enable now does not support font face. Yeah, so if the font of the customer is only existing on their font server, and they ask you to use font face, don't even try. Yeah, even if you would add font faces, so sources for the fonts, to the style sheets, this would not lead to anything. Yeah, and the change request was refused. I don't know what technical reason that has, but somehow in our framework that is not possible to reload legacy resources. So no font face for us. Yeah? So either the font is physically existing or not, and if not, we cannot support any remote font scenarios at all. So dictionaries is the one that we haven't seen yet. Just because we are already at 5 and I want to have a more intense discussion on level of templates, is there any concrete questions regarding the dictionaries? Or other way around, has anybody never touched them and has no clue what I'm talking about? In that case, we quickly pass through. Yes, no, maybe.
I have one question. I think in the old days, one of them you set as default. The other one you can't. You have to set it in the settings. But
Yes. All right. Yeah. Let's have a look.
Set as default did not work right. There was like a bug in the set as default.
Yeah. That's still the case. So okay, let's go quickly. There is the recording dictionary and there's the playback dictionary. Two resources that are on a regular basis customized. Why is that? Because the playback dictionary contains all the texts that the player is actually using that are static, like the hover texts of the single buttons or the static texts of the player feedback. You have deducted 1 from 3 points if you do something wrong in test mode. All those texts that are not authored and not recorded, they are in here. And this dictionary is editable, and if you want to have a new one, and that's the trick, if you want to have your custom one, you go plus. You don't edit the ones that exist. You go plus and say, again, as always, customer _ playback dictionary. And then this one is basically an overlay of the standard one. And then you might modify single ones. You just change text. If you don't want to call the glossary, but Peter, you rename the glossary here, and then the glossary is called Peter. So this is all the texts that the player is using in all the languages. You even can create your own languages here if you want. We created Klingon once, but it's outdated, unfortunately. So this is how it goes. If you try to edit the default one, you will have the complete view. This is the sometimes confusing part, but there is no edit options. It's not editable. You can touch it, but you can't change it. To change, you need to create your own one. And that most likely that's what you were asking. There is no hard button as expected. I would expect a hard button here and a bold one, like in all other scenarios, saying this one is used. This is the playback dictionary used. Not in the case of the playback dictionary. This is tools, settings, and then playback, I believe, general, visual, playback dictionary. Here, there you change. And this would change it, not the bold versus normal scenario as for the others. So you create a new one and you configure it in the settings. And this is actually the one that you were pointing to because of that bug. No, not that one. The desktop assistant is the same, but for the desktop assistant standard texts. So all the hover texts from the desktop assistant UI. Oh, come on. And same procedure, share via link, URL. You see, this is the text that you would expect in Desktop Assistant. And the recording glossary is the glossary that is used to create the sentences that the recorder puts into the bubbles. That's the matrices or matrices. How would you say that? For the syntax templates for the single sentences that the recorder knows and out of which the recorder creates the corresponding texts. Like in the simplest one, click in demo, click, and then the name of the object. Yeah, down to scroll and click and do whatever. Yeah, so everything that's coming from the recorder and some more are in here. So, and that's the one you were pointing to, Bart. Same procedure, actually. Yeah, you have to create a new one to overlay it.
Right.
And this one is bold, so this one has the heart button. And the differentiation here between simulation and desktop assistant. Yeah? Just we need two because this is just example. I don't know why they called it desktop assistant. This just means you need to manually switch it to be able to change it. Yeah, because there is no proper fallback in here. That's basically it. And we can still not distinguish between recording something that is click-based or recording something that rather should say pinch or whatever. Yeah, like if you create training for a mobile app, you need other sentences, and that just says there are two, and you can modify them. What I realized in the morning session is that they removed the heart button from here. And changing the default recording dictionary somehow seems to be related to the configuration. But I noted that. Not sure how to it's here. Look, it's just disappeared here, but still in the context menu.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise it would be boring, right? Yeah, if you would find all of the functions immediately, that would be boring after a while.
You know, every time they do a new version, you know, I'd probably spend maybe 20 minutes of a whole class of a week, you know, hunting for the stupid thing. You know, like, where did they put the button?
Yeah, I mean, so Easter eggs, even if not Easter, we are lucky people. We get Easter eggs every 3 months.
That's right. Always something new and interesting.
Yeah. Okay. That was dictionary at a glance. Yeah, dictionary editor is supposed to be self-explaining. It's just about you to know what they do, and they provide the text that are not coming from the authors, all of them, consequently, except the ones for the manager, and that was this UI resource that I was just mentioning in the release with the single text files per language. That would be the correspondent thing for the manager application. But then we have all texts covered basically. And let's get back to the course. And this dictionary step-by-step guide that shows everything. This is comprehensive. All pitfalls in there are noted there, etc. So we talked about documentation templates. I told you, and here it's red framed again, that you shall not just upload the documentation template that you receive from your customer. You need to adapt it. So you need to put the assets like the logo and the header and the footer and everything from there into a copy of our template, because there is functionality and styles in our dots, in our Word templates and PowerPoint templates that are used exclusively for Enable Now, and they must be there, and they can't be there in the templates provided by the customer. Yeah, so you have to copy stuff around. In any case, it's not possible to just import an existing DOT file and configuring it. This would lead to malfunction in certain scenarios. So that's about resources. We can skip that. We talked about settings. And then we talked about custom icons as well. Yeah, these guys are existing twice. You will replace them here. I showed you where. Yeah, the library tree could be modified by using text units or those. The next session or the session after, we will intensely discuss properties again, custom property management, and there you will find a far more flexible way to modify your tree. So forget that one. And now let's go ahead with templates. Templating is definitely part of the configuration process, right? So a work area, and I hope in the meantime you all using trees like this, or in best case this particular template which is downloadable in InfoCenter, are built up in that way if you follow the best practice. Yeah? And those four, or at least the toolbox, the creation and the delivery part, they are the best practice. They are real best practice trees. Maintenance is always something which is more or less custom and specific to the project, but the separation of where the authors work and where the end users access, that makes a lot of sense. And the one which is absolutely mandatory is the toolbox. How could you offer tools to the authoring teams if you would have no corresponding structure and order? And this is just what became best practice. Within the toolbox, we have a section called templates, and I recommend using templates for each and everything in any case, simply to guarantee that content looks consistent all over, and then to avoid confusion on the author's end. Having a proper set, a proper documented and well-formed and named set of templates that makes sense, reduces your training effort by 50%, let's say, because many things explain themselves after a while. So the toolbox comes with templates. This toolbox comes with media. What is that? Yeah, so standard objects like logos, like standard images, like whatever, icons, illustrations, things that should be used by the complete authoring team should be stored here. A, to avoid redundancies. You restrict the choice. You say, guys, if you want to have nice and pretty pages, there are images in our image gallery. Go there and get them. And if they are not there, they're not there. You do not download the smiling kitten from the internet for the start page of your e-learning. We don't want smiling kittens in our e-learnings. That's one reason. And the other is sizes. You can control the size of the images. Authors intend to just use the incoming material as it comes. Somebody provides an image. It's coming from the internal image database, has 15 megabytes in size, and they just drag it small on the page and leave it there. Page will still be 15 megabytes. We have an issue in the network, which could be avoided by calculating them to the proper size and providing them here. And the main course is to be sustainable long term. If an image changes, you can change it centrally, and you know where the media assets are used because you have a usage counter here, and you can point to the single objects that are actually using the media. So there's only advantages and not even one disadvantage. So please, please, please use media libraries in all cases. What I'm doing since a while is adding the guidelines to the toolbox as well, the authoring guidelines. The first versions and even the template that you can download in the Consulting Info Center is still a Word document. I would definitely recommend to use something like a library. I usually create my authoring guidelines as text unit-based trees here. And then the author has direct access to it just from the toolbox. There is no questions asked. We are using our own tool to document our own tool. And somewhere this year, we will provide a template for that, which is more filled. This is just a structure template. By summer, let's say, we will have a first start template with guidelines that are more questionnaires and a bit more filling. Miscellaneous glossary, self-explaining. So the toolbox. So what we are going to focus on first is templates. So what's templates for? For book pages, templates are obvious. And I believe that most of you already use them. A book page template is something, that's just the flat template downloaded from InfoCenter without any modifications. That's a real template. That has another icon. It's grayed out somehow, and it has this dotted line. And then we have regular book pages. What we see here is a mixed scenario between templates and so-called master copies. What is a master copy? A master copy behaves just like a Word dot file would. If you take an instance out of it, it's a simple copy, but there is no inheritation between the template and the copy. They don't know each other even. Yeah, you cannot foresee any inheritation of objects. So they are not changeable on the level of the underlying master template. And the real template, the one with the dotted line around, that's the contrary. This is the one that really does that. And the best practice is definitely using both. So why? Let's build something quickly. Going to my playground. Creating a book page. Saying this is my template. So this background shape and coloring comes from the style. Using no style, which would be standard, you could just draw your lines and everything manually. But let's, for now, go to the customer one and then say, okay, our logo is a star. It comes to the top left corner. And then we have a placeholder here for the book page title. Yeah, the simplest thinkable template ever. Book page title. And putting this to the left middle and doing it a bit larger, like this. There we go. And then we draw a line underneath. Then we have kind of a header. Most likely not the most impressive one that you've ever seen, but okay. So, and now we say, okay, that this is the fixed part of the page. So I don't want the authors to change that, so I lock positions. This is what you would do for a template. So, and this is what I decided, hands off. And you save it. Now, this is not yet a template. Putting this one into the subtype book page template makes it a template. And now I'm creating the first instance of that template. So I'm creating a new book page and I'm choosing what? A template. This one. So instance of book. I can touch it, but I can change it because I locked the position. Yeah? No chance to change it right now. Position locked, that's part of the template. You author, hands off. I put content in. One arrow should be enough. So now the good piece for the template. My instance is there, and this is one of a couple of thousand. And now corporate communication says, oh yeah, we changed our corporate design and our primary color is not black anymore, but purple. And texts must be all purple. And everybody delivering non-purple texts in our organization will be fired. So for us, going back to the instance, that's not a big deal because we were using templates. So any property of the underlying book page template is inherited to its instances. Okay, it changed. Now new color. And even I can't avoid that the author is would still be able to do nasty things like this. Yeah, this is still not possible saying, and if I decided that this is fixed, it's fixed. The author cannot even touch it. Yeah, but even in that case, you could just go reset template to object. And there's a script, by the way, that does this recursively. Yeah, you can mass clean up a whole substructure saying, okay, they messed it up because they just didn't follow my rules. And then you can recursively go through a complete subtree and say, reset everything to template. Yeah, then it's back to the original. So there's a function for that purpose. So now comes the not so nice part of templates. I copy this one. So I clone it, duplicate, and call this template process flow. So that's the template of, this is how a process flow should look in our company. How is this? Okay, we use chevrons for this. And let's pretend that will become a page where you hover the single steps of a process and you get a text shown somewhere. Yeah? One, copy, paste, two, copy, paste, three, and so on. So now this is a template. Save. And this template with a lot of text units around and maybe some time control and the speaker text in the back. Yeah, so okay. So the author now wants to use it. Same folder. I create a new book page based on a template. Which one? The process flow template. Here we go. Come on. So and now the author says, yes, that's cool. And functionality is there, but I need a process flow for 3-step processes. Yeah, delete one. Here we go. Delete. This is what the template now says. Delete. It's just visible quite for just a half a second or something, but it says, hey, this is an object which is part of the template. This is not foreseen that you delete it. But we can hide it for you if you don't like it. And this is where the mess starts, because then you say, okay, I need 3. So I need to bring them into an order. Take the lasso. Ah, damn. Yeah, if I want to do a proportional alignment something, it's always the hidden one in there. And this is, so getting rid of stuff is easier in the master copy. So the golden rule that became kind of a best practice, and I don't know if you see that differently, in that case, let's discuss, is everything which is design related supposed to live in templates. And everything which becomes then non-standard content related, let me just forward to this comparison slide. Yeah, strict approach and mixed approach. Everything, so strict would be we only use real templates, and we have everything under control, knowing that this particular situation could occur. And in the mixed approach, we have the template, the real template, which is always could be one or many, and they are always the baseline, the foundation for the master copies, but the authors are using the master copies only. Yeah, and that, from my perspective, at least, is the best of both worlds. You have maximum flexibility within your content. So everything which is content related is just copies and very flexible. But from a pure design grid, positioning, etc. perspective, you take advantage of the functionality of the real template. Yeah, and this just became a bit of the best practice. I don't know. How about you? Is that how you work in, or did you not get that much in touch with book pages yet? Any feedback?
I've done a little bit of that, not the full mixed, but what I tend to do is make a separate actual template with the dotted line border for each thing that I am doing. And that looks like it's overkill compared to your mixed approach.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I'm probably doing it harder than it has to be, but I am using templates, and it does work very well. But you're absolutely right. If you've got a lot of objects on there and the authors keep saying, I don't want this, I don't want that, they're still visible to the author as a shadow, and it's very confusing when you're working with a lot.
Especially in marking becomes quite challenging. Yeah? Getting the things in touch and sorting them, aligning them, changing their sizes just becomes some kind of,
it's a nightmare.
makes people nervous. Yeah, it's a nightmare. But that works fine. Yeah, it should. The template authors should be trained accordingly. Yeah, that's a bit, because if you leave that behind, they will probably not understand automatically, and then they mess the whole thing up. And so the template author is supposed to be trained accordingly. That's at least. Okay, so but book page templates is something which is well explained here. Yeah, including all the steps, all the possibilities. One thing that just would eat too much of our time, but is quite cool, you just have to know it, is the fact that you even can create that PowerPointish approach of layout variants that you can toggle just in runtime. Yeah, I mean, okay, that one is quickly built. I'm just proving that it works. Let's do it like this. Book page. Using this one. And now we add some content saying here, we have an image placeholder. I don't even have any images in that work area, I believe. So here, the green tick mark. Yeah, the smallest I've chosen. And a piece of text. Yeah, we are not paid for pretty. That's the text. And then this is the one thing that you need to know. Objects on pages have IDs as well. Yeah, they have unique identifiers as well, just as the objects. But they just need to be unique within a page, not necessarily through the complete work area, as it is for our project IDs and group IDs, etc. Yeah? So based on that fact, you can do something. Call this template image left text right. And then we take a duplicate of it, calling it image right text left. Where we change order quickly. So save. And they are still the same object IDs, right? So going back to our instance, which should now contain some more objects. It does. Getting rid of the arrow. On the level of the page, you see the template that I'm choosing is actually choosable. And if you do this, it just changes the objects just as they are, even if I would have selected something already, which is actually the kicker. Yeah? If there would be already text edited by the author, yeah, you still can change the layout just as you would do in PowerPoint by selecting one from the list. But if you do so, you have to be very disciplined and do that consequently. Because if you change something now to a template that does not know the other objects, you destroyed them. This was a destructive operation. The objects that I have just created, the text, which is actually the work of the author, is now dead. It's completely gone because that template that I've now chosen does not even know those objects. So it says, okay, the author actively decided to use a template that has objects that are not known, so they're gone. Yeah, no way back. So this had pros and cons. consider what you want to do, but it's possible, and it's quite cool because this is especially for storyboarding workshops, etc. You are quite flexible. You can just click your storyboards together in the tool, say this page like this, like this, like that, and then afterwards you only have to fill it with content, but you already have a working click dummy that looks quite nice. Good, yeah, but templates for everything and documentation of templates. Yeah, this is what would happen in the toolbox, as mentioned. I am fan of templates for everything. Text units, how should a glossary entry look like? Format it once, say, use the template. How should an imprint look like? Create it once, document it, tell them to use the template. One thing, and that would be our last point for today, would be project templates. Project templates are underrated, because most of the consultants don't know what they are for. What would I use a project template for if the recorder asks me all that questions? Yeah, I can't change each time, so why should I use a template? Exactly because of that. Exactly because of the fact that the recorder asks so many questions. And probably you want to avoid that those questions are asked, because Mr. Miller, the guy that's supposed to record, is anti, and he doesn't want to be trained. Yeah? He just want to does his recordings and that's done. And he doesn't want to know about profiles, and he will probably never understand. So how to fix Mr. Miller? Projects. Simulation. Simulation, they don't know that template versus master copy thing. A simulation template in any case inherits nothing. It's just like a DOT, it's a copy, a master copy file. Though let's call this template for Mr. Miller. Why is this German all the time? There we go. So, and this is the last point before we start our Q&A, or before my computer finally crashes. Let's see what should happen first. Come on.
Up to now, I only thought of saving the project template for like a BPP thing where I insert all the BPP macros up front.
Yes.
And I put them on specific frames to mimic how the customer wants their BPP layout. But this thing of saving the recorder settings, that is awesome. I never thought about that.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I hope my machine comes back, and then I can actually show you. Otherwise, we switch to yours. That's a nightmare. What's that? But that's definitely some kind of update that is running in the background. Yeah, but Software Center is completely silent. Now it comes back. Okay, so that's one thing that is not well documented. In the course it is. In InfoCenter, you have to know where. This is why I'm explicitly saying it again. This is one thing that really fixes problems in large productions where the single resource that needs to record really is rare. Yeah, so they spend half an hour a day for you to produce content. So how to streamline that to the best possible way, and because of the sheer size of the project, like 100 authors, if they would proactively produce stuff for you, yeah, they would mess up your inbox, which is in that case the unsorted folder, and it would be a nightmare to sort this back. So let's see how to fix this. First thing, what is a project template? For now, there could be content in as well, but for now we use it just for one purpose: tools, settings. We use it for the purpose of the standardization of the recorder. And that's the regular settings dialog, but some of the objects in here, authoring settings, my standard, now have a separate layer. Recording general, and then recording, but for the template of Mr. Miller. Yeah, so that's the recorder settings for Mr. Miller. And now we know, okay, Mr. Miller supposed to record SAP GUI in a size of 1200, 2024. And you don't want Mr. Miller to change that. So lock recording area. And since Mr. Miller somehow struggles with the term of a profile and tries to play around and tries to record SAP with the Office profile, which leads to very confusing simulations, you say, I will avoid that, restrict to profile. And the profile is the SAP Corbu profile. Now Mr. Miller has no chance anymore to choose another one because it's restricted for size. The application window surely will be sized to that size and locked. So that's Mr. Miller's template. Here we go. You could add start pages, stop pages, whatever other funky things we put in here. But this is just functional now. A functional template for Mr. Miller. So, and now we pretend that the author X here, that's Mr. Miller. Yeah, and that's the reason why I'm always promoting this structure within the customization and as a baseline for training, because it simply makes the most sense. Every author needs one folder, and the structure above reflects the project or the organizational structure of the customer's company in general. But anybody has its own place. And you are the project manager, and this is author X is Mr. Miller. So now we're saying Mr. Miller is supposed to do 5 recordings in SAP in that size, but he is Mr. Dow, so he doesn't do. Go there, copy, paste, duplicate, creates an instance, template for Mr. or let's call it container for Mr. Miller 1. And pretending that we create like 5. And then, depending on the case, if Mr. Miller is an instant producer author, the only thing you have to do is right-click, change workflow, assign to, search Mr. Miller. I have no Mr. Miller here, so I'm using this guy. It's my local manager, so there's only 2 users in there. And say, Mr. Miller, please record this. Yeah, and you could name it, not container for Mr. Miller, but like the process is named, or you could already fill the description. So now it's assigned to Mr. Miller. And if Mr. Miller would open it and start the recording. Yeah, it's restricted to Corbu design. What I'm doing right now makes absolute no sense, yeah, because I have no SAP open. I'm now recording the browser with that profile, which makes no sense. But you see, no questions asked. Recording area is fixed. It tells you recording area is predefined. Use it like this. Profile is fixed. Everything is fixed. You just record, and there is no way not doing it. Yeah, and the only thing that Mr. Miller is supposed not to do is creating own objects in here. And again, if it's an instant producer author, you simply create 50 or 70 of them per batch and assign them, and then they all end up in a single list in Mr. Miller's work area. And Miller is 8 manual objects. Mr. Miller is taught to fill containers, and you will never have an unsorted object anymore, never ever. So I don't see any option for mass production projects than this, and it works like a charm. And
Michael, I have 2
foundation.
questions.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. So if you create a sort of like a project template, like what you just did, we can't assign recordings via the work area round trip anymore then, right? Because you won't be able to duplicate this type of recording in the Excel file.
You can. Sure. That would have been the next one. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to mass create.
Mm-hmm.
Let's delete this guy again. And if we would have Mr. Miller as a starting point, author X, you go work area structure export. Desktop. There was a bug 2 releases ago where the add function was buggy, but this is gone. It's all working. So we need another column here. Yeah, and then we say Miller, this is container 1 to how many ever. Yeah. What should be done? Add. All of them have add. Then we have the template. Going back to producer, just grabbing the template's ID, which did not become easier in the last release, to be honest. So back, that is the template. Always take care here. If you now scroll down, it would count up the 4. So copy from here. That otherwise that breaks it. Yeah, we need this the same one. And the language. Yeah, Mr. Miller is supposed to work for Germany, so it's DE-DE downwards. So, and that's the initialization for the author Miller for 15 containers. 15, 50, 150 is the same effort. Yeah, it makes no difference.
Okay, I think I was getting confused because the project object doesn't have like a template option when you create it. Like,
Yeah,
just the book page.
the round trip doesn't care. Yeah, the round trip doesn't care whether you create or you reference a real template. In that case, it creates instances of it, or in the book page case, or in the quiz case, where we have real templates, or the distinction between both. And if you have master copies for projects, for text units, for groups, where we have no specific template object, in that case, you just reference the object that you want to copy, and it makes a copy. That's dynamic at that point. Doesn't matter.
Okay, I see. And I guess my second question is, if you were to insert start and end pages for your recording and you sent it to an instant producer author, would they still be able to open it?
There was a change in the last release, and it's a bit more flexible now. So for instance, if you have a book page in front, instant producer would still swallow it. But if you really modified it, like you added a mode change macro and whatever additional objects within the flow, and would then send it back to an instant producer author, they would still not be able to open it anymore. For that purpose, you would go for the web editors in Manager.
Oh, okay, I see. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and this just to finalize, because I just saved it already. Yeah, we would go for the way back. Structure import desktop X Miller, and says yes, add 15. It still calculates wrong. It should say update 1, add 15. But then we have it sooner or later. Amazingly lame. Or I did something wrong. That could be as well. Don't know what happened. Okay, you just believe me that this is the way it would actually work. Don't know what I made wrong. Yeah, but I would expect now 15 containers underneath of author X, which are then, because author X is assigned to Mr. Miller, automatically assigned to Mr. Miller. And if you train your project leads like this, yeah, they save ages, especially in sorting things and searching things. Containers are definitely the better option, and therefore you need proper templates, and knowing about the overrides in the templates and the fact that creating things with the Excel round trip is an easy one. That is mass production easy, or far easier than not knowing those two facts. All right, I'm done with what I wanted to show you today, and I would open lines for questions now, if there are such.
Oh, I have another question. So
Yes.
for the book page editor where you can add shapes, is it possible to add in custom vector shapes?
For the regular drop down in the book page, you mean? No.
Yeah.
No,
So
no.
like if,
But what you always can do, and this is what I would suggest, and maybe that bug is fixed, I'm not sure. If it's not yet, it will be in 1902. The filter was simply configured wrong. You use SVGs. Yeah, you would not add custom ones here, but you would just add an image and then select an SVG file from a file. Let me see.
okay, so you would recommend, like, for example, in your toolbox, creating a special group for vectors
Here.
that are imported in SVG format.
Yeah, SVG is it? Yeah, and then what I'm usually doing, so this would be a proper vector form in there. Yeah, no scaling losses at all. Yeah, proper vector.
Okay.
And what I'm usually doing then, yeah, that happens very often, that you have your own vector form collection, creating a page that just contains them, yeah, the shape and then this description as text. What shall we do with this? Next one, just a infinitely long page. Yeah, and then I put it in the toolbox, and this is what this is for. Yeah, this is what it is for, object collections. Yeah, and there I put those book pages in, lock them, and if you lock them, the authors only can open them read only. Yeah, and then you say, okay, if you use the standard forms, you use the standard ones, but if you want to use one of ours or many of ours, you just open the object collection that you want, read only, and copy it from there to your book page.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, but you wouldn't be able to change the color scheme at all in Producer,
No,
like how
no,
you would traditionally with like Visio or
no.
something.
Then I would take not one instance in the object collection, but 5 using the 5 primary colors that they accept, yeah, in one run or something like
Okay,
that. Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Anything else?
I have 4 little questions and then 2 bigger questions that are not related to this topic.
Go
So
ahead.
I ask my little questions and then we'll talk about the big ones if you want to answer them. So the little questions are, the bubble style editor went away last version. The version before got rolled into the style editor, which is fine. And Susan explained to me that issue that the old bubble style editor used individual objects, individual pings, whereas the new style editor looks at one file, has all the pings in it, which you showed here in the session. Yep. I've currently got the bubble style editor reactivated just through the the expert, what is it, expert thing, the setting.
It's still there somewhere. Yeah.
Yes. Will it go away eventually, or
It
can
will.
I keep it for a while? It will go.
You can, but the new ones are far more flexible than the old ones.
Okay, so
the only reason why you would still use the old ones is if your customer is still using IE7 or lower.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but because this is a browser compatibility issue, because the new ones, they always come with alpha transparency, and the old ones without. That's basic tables. Yeah, and if you have real old browser infrastructure, you have to have the old bubbles. Yeah, but there's no other reason why not using the pretty ones.
I didn't think we had an opacity slider or an opacity control on the new one. Do we?
Sure. The old one only was opacity capable for the whole shape, and
yes.
here you even can do that on background level, but that depends on the template.
Yes.
But I would think so.
There's the transparent, but there's no like slider that I can say how transparent is he.
I don't even know what that one does, but yeah. No, there is. You're right. There is no alpha channel for the bubbles. That's true.
And that's why one of my customers liked it. They hate the new bubble styles because all the spikes are short, they're nubby, And we wound up using shadow, I think, which was the longest
But
spike we could find.
if this is the point, yeah, not go circle back to the old bubbles,
Mhm.
that they will become a technological problem sooner or later.
That's what
Rather
I thought.
drop Mirko a line and ask him for a bubble with a transparency slider, because that's an easy one.
All right, I will do that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, answers that question. You mentioned that we can edit the algorithm that calculates colors in the style
Yeah.
editor.
Let me show you how
I'm just
such
curious.
how such an template looks like. So
It's not like I'm ever going to do it, but I just wanted to know how.
yeah. So if you want to do it, the complete walkthrough for graphics artists is in Consulting Info Center,
Mhm.
and there in Consulting Services.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a partner, or if you have a graphics person that's keen on creating customizable Enable Now assets,
Mm-hmm.
this is what you give them. Style editor creates style templates. This is the tutorial to do so with all the data needed. That it needs to be somebody who is good in Illustrator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but this is how it works. Yeah, including everything.
Very cool. I will go look at that then. I did not even know that was there.
And I believe that the calculation schemes and the inheritance schemes are fully documented in here, including coding. Just as a sneak preview, the templates that are used by the style editor are not part of the work area, obviously. They are part of the installation. So you have to look in the producer installation path.
Mm-hmm.
And there you find producer installation. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And within producer installation, you find style templates. And
Ah.
that's the list of all templates that are offered in the section of the style templates. So
Mhm.
and let's go to Allskin 3, which is the medium-sized player.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then you have all the sprites and all the icons and all the previews here. And then you have the DST entity file, and that's where the calculation is made.
Let's see that.
No, that's not where the calculation is made. Where was
that?
that? One of those files is the files where the calculations are made. Yeah, so I mean, it's there, it's documented, so somewhere in here. But if you want to sneak around, this is the ones that we already got. And for instance, this is Dottie. Yeah, Dottie is the new avatar that they gave us for Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you can download the TR Dottie, which is the template. And if you put the TR Dottie in here, Dottie will show up in Style Editor here.
Okay.
Yeah, so edit style resources. Dottie is not a default template, but if you put that in, you have Dottie in the list.
I will have to look that one up.
Yeah.
That was one of the, and is that a female avatar?
Dottie, I don't know. Is Dottie female?
One of the annoyances.
Let's have a look. I don't know.
Oh, it's as bad as a paper clip back in Office, whatever that was.
Yeah. That's a return of Clippy. Yeah.
Kill me now. One of the gripes that people have about the comic woman is that you can't give her pants. At least not in the through the interface. You'd have to redraw her, but I hope she gets pants at some point.
If you need avatars, I have a partner in Belgium, and they do that on a very, very professional level. They created for 2 customers of mine avatars already. And the guy that creates them now creates them always as customizable ones to make them reusable. He created one for a railway company, which is the superconductor. It's like a superhero with a cape and a conductor's cap. Extremely cool thing. And it's just an avatar like ours, completely colorable. So if you need something like that, drop me a private message. I can set you in contact with this company. They are really good.
Okay, all right. 2 other tiny questions. One about the settings. When we went to the playback settings, you pointed out the highlight color, which we can set. But for drag and drop, obviously the highlight colors is both on the drag and the drop option. Can we somehow set them separately? Have a red target and a green source or something?
Oh, I don't know. Not in the customizing per default. Most likely somewhere in the code, but that would be a request to the support guys.
Okay, support. And then the last thing is I'm fighting with right now at Navy. We want to take a pile of published UPerform stuff, slam it into the work area, and tag it with SAP with context using the record context button. So, and I have tried this. Is it possible to, say, insert a PDF, for example, in a media file folder and then tag the PDF with record context?
In that case, I would use the viewport.
Viewport.
Which is this one.
Tell me about that. What is that view?
So this is underrated because no one knows what an HTML document is.
Right.
Now, where is it here? HTML document says nothing, right?
Okay.
That's an iframe.
Okay.
That's one of the most powerful objects that we have in that whole machinery.
Really?
Yeah, because this just gives you a viewport to something that's living somewhere else.
Okay.
Because you can put an URL in, but it lives in the frame of a book page on which, again, you can easily put a context. And
so I would insert the PDF there, and then
you would leave the PDF where it is, and you would put the deep link to the PDF in there.
Gotcha. Okay, and then I would record context on the actual book page.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you have a list of the things you want to hijack, you use the round trip to create your containers per batch. This is how we do mass hijackings of legacy systems. I usually always ask them, provide me Excel. I will take care of the rest. I just need the absolute deep link to it.
Interesting.
It's quite impressive how fast you can actually fill an EPSS with valid content without even having one recording done.
Cool. Okay. All right. Well, this is good to know. I got about 3,000 objects, legacy objects.
Yeah, and then listen, if you wanna, that's an important one. If you wanna import them, if you have to import them, yeah. If you wanna leave them where they are, this is a proper way. Yeah, using this HTML thing. The content, the target must be iframe capable, but PDFs would be per default. For which reason ever you want to deactivate that legacy repository and you want to import it into our world,
Which I'm thinking we do.
Yeah, you could break your fingers and you could say, you go in there saying, okay, this is my target folder, insert file, select the file, next file, next file, next file. But you could also just go to the target, make a Control A and drag them in completely. Then in this group, you would have 300 files, right?
Yes.
And then you cannot put one context per file because the media file is coming now, but the media file still cannot carry context in the first run. So you need carrier objects for it. And this is what this script is for, which is a beauty.
Script.
Yep. Here. In the script section of consulting IC, and there is one called add, where is it? Add assets to carrier objects, and that's exactly its purpose. So let me show you that guy is a beauty. Right?
So cool. This would really help us. Thank you so much, because we were not getting anywhere trying to brainstorm over this.
Yeah, no, this saves weeks of work.
All right, I will drill down into that and look at that.
If you import that one, then you will have an additional function. Maybe it's already in here. Is it? No, I haven't imported it yet. You have an additional entry here, and then you run the script on the group where you imported the masses, like hundreds of objects. And then it asks you, what should be the carrier? Should it be a template? Should it be a book page? Should it be a text unit? What template you want to use? And if book page, you can choose, should the target object be centrally placed inside it? And then you have it usable. And then you just have to put context on top.
So cool. Thank you so much. You just saved me a lot of heartache. Thank you. And I think that might be all my questions. Maybe I had another stupid one, but double check. Nope, I'm working through the last one. I screwed up an upgrade. I didn't check out the resources and hold the right tokens before did the upgrade. So I'm hurting the guy whose work area that is. So now I'm trying to manually back it out and migrate the resources after the fact, which I think I can do, right? I just have to
Yes,
put,
and now the migration wizard
yeah,
does not complain anymore about write tokens
right,
missing.
right. So
Just,
I'm in the, working through that right now.
yeah.
No worries, I'll fix it. This is my own fault. I should have just said, dude, you hold the right tokens until we're done, and then you migrate your thing. I'm going to rope him into being part of the migration process because I've got 14 areas to manage, and it's going to be too much.
The last sentence was completely roboterish.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have 14 work areas to manage, and it's just too much for me to migrate, over a coffee break.
Is it all the same resource kit, or are they different?
They are all different.
All right. Is it cloud or on-prem?
On-prem.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I'm sure you have 100 work areas to manage. So 14 is not much, but I don't have.
There is scripts doing that. There is one that auto migrates, but that pushes basically one set of resources to many.
Okay.
So if you want to have one resource kit for 100 work areas, this is just one click. If you have that script implemented, it works like good. But to auto run the migration, this is what HANA does. The cloud backend does, but the SQL on-prem will not be able to do that ever.
And that is what we are. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's good to know about that script. I could use that at Edison, so that's helpful.
Yeah, drop me a reminder. And this is like a raw egg right now. This is not in the official list, but drop me a reminder, and I will ask Nico to comment it, because we are only allowed to put them in our repository when they are commented. And then as soon as they are commented, I will send you a mail back. But that could take another week or two.
Oh, it's no rush. I mean, this would be a future ace up my sleeve kind of thing. I don't need it now. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. You answered all my questions.
Cool.
Thank you.
Mission complete.
Yes.
Anybody? Anything else? If not, I wish you a very, very nice weekend, and hope to see you soon for the next session, which then finally has the topic that was planned for today. Sorry again for my little confusion. And yeah, I hope it was helpful.
Yes.
Talk to you guys next time.
Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Michael.